Yo, Drew here. This is a follow-up to my video, The Ultimate Guide to Recording Mix-Ready Vocals at Home. That was about the technical aspects of getting a technically proficient vocal take that you can send to a mixing engineer and have them be able to deliver you a good mix in return. This takes it a step further. This is about how to arrange your vocals so that if I'm your mixing engineer, if you record something and you send it to me, that not only is it not noisy and full of mistakes and pops and things like that, where I can, on the technical side, make it sound good, but this is so you can also give me the correct tracks so that I have the ability to give it that big sound, if that's what you're going for. So my phone froze there, and it's actually fortunate because I really went on for several minutes explaining something that's stupidly simple. Bottom line, here's your hook layout as a singer. Hook lead, doubles that I'm gonna put left and right, 2 doubles. So the hook, you're singing it 3 times. Your strong center one, your sides, they're a little softer. And then every harmony and octave from there, you're gonna do 2 of each of those so that each one is doubled. That's the bottom line. Now, even if you're not going for a big pop vocal sound, I still recommend the hook method that I just described because your mixing engineer can simply tuck those extra doubles low so that they add a little more depth but don't make it sound huge, or you can always just turn them off, mute them. But it's way better to have too many tracks that can be pared down than to be wishing I'm mixing your song and I'm wishing that I could make the hook bigger and you're wishing I could make the hook bigger, but I can't because I don't have the tracks. So do more than enough and you can work down from there. Now this same logic can apply to your verses, but I personally almost never double the verse. So my layout for the verse is typically a single track for the verse lead, and then any harmonies you do, double those. And sometimes there will be maybe, I like some stab doubles on the verse where maybe you just double certain words or certain parts of a phrase for emphasis, but I almost never, ironically on this song that I have pulled up, I did fully double the verses, but I almost never double the verse lead. Single track, and then any harmonies you do there, do 2 of each of those. And anything throughout the song, if you do oohs and ahs and background pads and stuff, anything that's a straight background vocal, I tend to do 2 of each of those so that I can play with them stereo. I don't usually do the center track for those because it's like the lead vocal is already the center track. So any, like, if there's oohs and ahs type stuff in the background, I like those to be, like I said, more of a stereo thing so they can kind of hang out here around the lead vocal while the lead vocal's in here. Makes sense? Unfortunately, I think it's beyond the scope of this video to actually teach you how to do harmonies or what harmonies to do or how to sing better. That's not what this is about. I'm basically assuming that you can already sing, but you're not that educated about recording yourself. But if you watch my last video, the guide, that'll get you the technical stuff. And then this is the next level of how to arrange your singing that you already know how to do. Following this will also make your session a lot more organized, your stems, when you send them to the mix engineer, which will make your mix engineer be able to make sense of it faster and save you time on the clock. So, because when I get amateur recorded stuff, there's typically tons of tracks and it's all over the place. Keep it organized. 1 track for all your verses. Verse 1, verse 2, all on the same track. The only time, don't break up different phrases on different tracks and stuff like that. The only time you should have more than 1 track for your verse is if, like, sometimes you want the end of a phrase to carry over on top of the start of another phrase that, you know, you just can't possibly sing that live. You want to do something like that that's not singable live. Okay, then you should have 2 verse tracks and only switch between them when the end of this phrase overlaps with the beginning of this phrase. Otherwise, you should have 1 lead verse track and then, you know, your harmony tracks 2 at a time, original and double, for each harmony that you want to do. Then you have a track that's your lead hook track, and then your 2 hook doubles, your hook lead doubles, and then your 2 of each harmony. And then a lot of times I even would put if there's a bridge, I would put the bridge lead vocal on the verse track as well. And if the harmonies are a similar layout, use those same tracks from the verse harmonies as well. If the verse is a completely different vibe, then yeah, you might need to use a new stack of tracks. But that is a good way to keep them organized. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm just trying to be as comprehensive as possible. It also goes beyond the scope of this video to like teach you how to do a punch-in. I'm kind of assuming that you know how to do a punch-in in your DAW, your digital audio workstation, in the program that you're using. But a tip to do it effectively is always, if you want to punch a part of a phrase, delete that part of the phrase, start a new track, and record, you know, the 2 or 3 lines leading into the phrase you want to punch and a couple lines leading out of the phrase that you want to punch. That way, when you insert the part that you want to punch into the empty slot after you've recorded it, there's wiggle room to where you can make it transition better, where maybe you need to transition a few extra words or even an extra phrase in either direction to make the sound smooth. And always make sure that you put a crossfade on, you know, you got to learn how to do that in whichever DAW you're using. I'm not here to teach you how to use your program, but always put crossfades on your vocal edits, on your punch-ins. That's a huge deal. That is something that is very important that you need to do, that I got into kind of pros and cons of doing it yourself in the last video, and this is a con of doing it yourself. Being in the room with an engineer, they're gonna make sure that all the edits are done cleanly. So if you're you know, gonna have to do some practice and research on doing your own vocal editing, but it's not hard. You just have to be diligent about putting fades on your edits, and preferably on the beginnings and ends of phrases. But if you leave that dead space in there, the mixing engineer will clean that stuff up. But if you send the mixing engineer a punch where you did a bad job of inserting the punched phrase, there's nothing that can be done in the mix to fix that. So that's something that you've got to be diligent about. That's something that you got to learn to hear. So much of this is about training your ear. I'm coming at it from probably more of a musician standpoint. I started music and audio on the same day. So they're intertwined in my mind. If you're a singer and you follow my technical tips in the last video, and then you follow these tips to properly punch in and edit and crossfade and lay out your singing, you are gonna sound like a rock star when you give it to someone like me, because I'll be able to take it and run with it, because I won't be limited by all this noise in the background or messed up edits, or wishing that I could make the hook sound bigger but you didn't give me the proper tracks. So you'll be so ahead of the game, and your roughs will sound so much better. You'll be so much closer to the sound you want to hear when you make your rough version, your rough unmixed version at home is going to sound better just by the principles of laying it out this way. All right, for the rappers, pretty much so much of what you just heard applies. I don't even think I'm going to play you an example because it's even more simple for rappers. So let's start with your hook. It's going to be a similar idea. A lot of times a rap hook is better as just one track, naked, raw, but oftentimes you do want the hook to have a little more oomph to it. And in that case, it's the same thing I told the singers. Do your strong lead track that I'm going to put in the center, and then do 2 doubles of it that might be put to the side. For the rapper to probably make those less prominent, it's just to make the voice, I don't want it to sound too doubled for a rapper. I just want it to sound a little bigger and stronger than the hook vocal did. Potentially. Sometimes with a rap, you want the hook to sound exactly the same size as the verse vocal. But so yeah, that's for the hook. Now for the verse, your typical rap verse has like 3 main elements. Your lead track, I wouldn't recommend doubling the whole lead track. That's used to have that. It's a pretty passe thing to do. If you're trying to get like a super old school sound, you might, I'm not even going to take that out. You might want to double your whole verse, but that's highly unlikely in 2020 and beyond that that's the sound you're looking for. So what's more usual these days is your main track, and that's going to carry most of the verse. A lot of your big, which I enjoy, a lot of your big time A-list rappers these days are just doing like straight up a single take verse. But then maybe you have people more like Migos status, which is like super ad-lib heavy. And so your main 3 parts of a rap verse: the lead, the dubs, and the ad-libs. So the lead is the lead. The dubs, that's like a slang term for doubles. They're sometimes also called in and outs, or I've heard them called keywords because they emphasize certain words, usually like the rhyming word, the rhyme at the end of the phrase or something. So these dubs, in and outs, keywords, are doubles that aren't throughout the entire track, but just double certain words and certain important phrases. And you can do one of these doubles. Typically, I would do 1 lead, 1 double, 1 ad-lib. So the double can, for emphasis, I will have, let's just go as big as possible. Like let's just say the most that I would do on a rap verse. I would have the lead track. I would have the main dubs in and outs track, which is just going to hit some stuff. Then I might have 2 stereo doubles, one that I'm going to put on each side that would emphasize like really big parts of the verse that you really want to punch. And this doesn't always happen every verse, but sometimes this happens. You really want to hit something, and I like being able to have the option of going stereo with that. So 2 doubles for that stuff. So that's actually 3 double tracks, because your main, okay, your double, your in and out double, and then 2 doubles that are unisons of each other that are hitting like really important spots. And then your ad-lib is your, funny things that you shout in the spaces. Hopefully if you're watching these videos, you know enough about rapping to know what your ad-lib track is about. So, sometimes if the ad-libs, if you really want to hit them hard and you have like certain ad-libs, the term ad-lib is like implies improvisation, but maybe you kind of like have written your ad-libs and really want them to punch. Well, then sometimes you can double the ad lib, and I might do a stereo thing with those, just like I might do with some doubles. But your dubs are doubling certain phrases of the lead, and your ad libs are filling in spaces with usually goofy stuff. And that's mainly it for a rap. I guess I didn't mention ad libs for singers, but you know, to throw that in if you're still watching singers. For the ad lib track, I also usually just do that a single layer, just like the lead. It's just like another lead track for me. Okay, some special situations. Let's say you want to do what we call gang vocal tracks, which is best when you have a group of people to do them with, but you can also do them with just your voice and layering them. So that's a situation where maybe you want to do something like a "ay," or you want to do, you know, you want to make it sound like the whole world is singing a phrase or rapping a phrase. So then in that situation, you would double it multiple times, kind of as many times as you want until it sounds as big as you want, while kind of trying to put a different tone. You know, this works best for non-melodic stuff, you know, stuff like the A's, you know, so it's like, if I want to make it sound like there's 20 people saying A, I'm going to try and make it a little different and keep layering it. A, 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 you know. So you're going to try and put on like a different voice for each layer and do that 10, 20 times and try and make it super gigantic. I don't really find that, and this might just be to my ear, I find for sung stuff, if you're just keep layering and layering something that you're singing more than, you know, 3 times, it doesn't really sound bigger, it sounds weird. But that might just be my ear. You know, like if you were going for trying to get like a choir sound by yourself, then I would do, you know, as many harmonies as possible with a double of each one. And if you pick the right harmonies and the right octaves and stuff, it's going to sound fat. I don't think it's going to sound that much fatter just because you sang the lead 8 times instead of singing it 3 times, or you sang the third 8 times instead of twice. That's kind of my opinion. That's a little subjective. But yeah, to get a huge sound, you probably just need more people, or that would be the most ideal. That's really it. I mean, these ideas basically require that you already pretty much know what you're doing as a singer or a rapper. I'm not here to teach you your craft. But if you know how to do the vocals, following these tips to lay it out, it'll make it sound better in the rough. It'll make it better organized and easier for your mix engineer to make it sound more better and make it sound, you know, if you want that big pop gigantic sound, these tips are how you're going to get that. And even if you don't want that, I recommend recording this way and then putting the tracks quietly in the mix or muting them, but at least you don't get stuck in a situation where you wish you had more size and it's not there. Better to take away than to add. Hope this helps.